Said I had all I would take with it. It reached everything in the morning, 9 o'clock.
Let me go back. Okay. Yeah. I gotta make the county admin, usually it's departmental. Okay, this is gonna be over the departmental increase. What you're getting. Not your admin. The meeting, I was.
That's the next budget.
Okay.
So have like, you can probably take up.
Okay.
Go look at the show difference. This show doesn't.
So if you take. There's a two again. You go over here. Need to do this. Yes.
Good evening. I'll now call the budget workshop.
Let us pray together. Our Heavenly Father, we thank you for this day. And we thank you for all of your blessings. We thank you for your grace and your mercies. And we thank you for what you have done for us. We thank you for providing us with strength that we may do the things you have assigned our hands to do. We ask for your presence this evening as we discuss the concerns of this county and the citizens that live within. We ask that we make sure we are looking at the mission that we have and you have given us to be of service to them. And that when we are thinking about what we need to do, that we keep them first in our mind to serve our fellow man. And when we leave this place, we ask that you continue to keep us in your care and take us to our next destination. And when we reach there, we will be safe, and that when we see our families, that they will be also. We ask these things in your Son, Jesus' name. Amen.
Pledge allegiance and to the republic for which it stands, God, indivisible, with liberty and justice. A large crowd we have here this evening. Up first, we have approval of the agenda.
Motion to approve.
Motion by Mr. Raymond.
Second.
Second by Herb Double. We'll go Ms. Clark. Any additions or deletions to the agenda? And I'll call for the vote. All those in favor, please raise your right. 7-0. All right. Dive right in. Or actually, let's do that. I'm gonna turn it over to the county administrator. Just to give us if you have anything to say, update on the budget in its entirety, and then we'll dive into our operations.
The budget in its entirety, general fund budget, we've got pretty much balanced pending council review. So I'll be able to present a balanced budget, and then council can, discuss it and make adjustments as needed. And arrive back at a balanced budget, sure adjustments made, but I will be presenting a balanced budget when that's not comes. Tonight, we're of course discussing EMS and fire and the other department heads and their deputy directors here to help out. And I think we got EMS up first. No, fire, excuse me. I just want to get Kevin excited. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Ready? Are you ready?
I'm ready.
Ready to go with?
Go ahead.
All right, so, council's, information, the last page of your packet has your millage evaluations. As you all are aware, the only folks who pay, into the fire tax are the folks who live outside of the incorporated municipal limits. That's outside of, Lawrence, Clinton, Fountain Inn. The rest of them will pay it. That's why that number is less than the general, in the EMS millage. 140,000 mil valuation for budget here. Last year on the fire operations, we assessed 20.54 mils. The allowable index for this year is 8.22%. So if we choose to, which I believe is the number that is figured in your supplemental budget, it would allow 22.23 mils to be assessed. So, Greg, I'll let you go over any particulars of this budget.
Okay, first we have, at the very beginning, we got salaries. In this year's budget, I am asking for 8 new firefighter full-time, slots. 2 would go to the nest station. That would finish out the nest and have 2 firefighters a shift that would get that station fully operational 24 hours a day. Also asking for 6 full-time firefighters to be put in the Broadfield Fire Department district. To start out with, they would be housed at the Waterloo station at night, where we already have a sprinkler. We have to just add some additional bedrooms and to the back. That's minimal cost. But during daytime, from 7:30 a.m. to about 7:30 at night, they would be manned, working in the Crosshill area, responding to calls. Some of the council members may know, and myself and Diane and Brown went down and looked at Crosshill station a while back about some things that had to be done. We talked to the fire chief down there. Last year, their average response to calls was about 44% of the time they answered up. The remaining time we had to send back up from our paid crew at Waterloo to Crosshill. They have slightly improved. They're about 50% response rate now. But we are still struggling to provide a acceptable level of response in the Crosshill area. So we really need the 6 firefighters. Part-time salaries, I don't know why the 14,955 is in there. We don't have any part-time people now.
Did you last year?
I didn't have it in the last, we got 5,000 last year's budget. I think that was because we did have a part-time firefighter, Joe Kennedy, but he's no longer with us and we really don't need the position. So that could be cut out.
So we're cutting out the part-time salary of 14,995. 15 grand off your 1.3 million dollar deficit.
It was what you said, it was Kennedy?
Yeah. Yes, yeah. Overtime is that's what we asked for.
And that's double over last year's budget.
Yes, yes. So, well, some of that due to more positions, some of that's also due to our mechanic was working a good bit of overtime, trying to keep up. We cut him back to the 40 hours a week. And so hopefully that should help cut down on overtime. We thought we had a lot of sickness and having to cover shifts, so But I think 150 will be a lot, easier for us to maintain. Going on down past the FICA, workers' comp, we're seeing we, in the budget we're in now, we anticipated the workers' comp being a lot less, and it is gonna be. We have budgeted, in the 2023 budget, 279,805. As you see, it's at the projected, 23 projected numbers, we're way under that. Just last week, we got our projection from our workers' comp carrier. And again, that's a significant reduction over what we had in the budget we're in now, so that'll help out too. Rest of our, there's a slight increase in the professional services, that's just because of software increases. We're not sure yet what our, software is going to be going into the 24-year, the first report got bought out by, ESOs, we just don't know what that price is going to be yet, so that's just to help keep it covered. Physicals to be fine, building maintenance, as we talked about our last meeting, we're asking for 100,000 versus 50. We still have a lot of repairs to be made at stations that we just did not get done, with the fire bond money, and that would help us to finish, of course, we can't get it all with that money, but it will help us get, further down the road to get the stuff that's got to be done fixed.
Let me ask a question on that. It looks like your department request was 50 and the county admin suggestion or request was 100. Is that right? Or should it be flipped?
That would be after discussion with him. We added it at the county administration. That's what this column is gonna be, where it's been made changes as we discussed.
You'll see the initial request and then the county admin sections as we sat down with each individual department. Walk through what they might be looking at over the next budget year. And then that's the reiteration. So it's not necessarily my request, that's more of like my review with each individual.
I have a question, Mr. Chairman. Is that going to be a supplement to bond? Is that what we're doing?
No, this is just if the wall socket falls out, we gotta go repair a wall socket.
Okay. I'm hoping it will be addition to what the bond did take. That's what we need to be.
I mean, this is to work on our county owned buildings, is it not?
Yeah.
Which is all the parking lots.
Right. Yeah. I mean, obviously there'll be some work that the bond didn't cover. I mean, done similar stuff on the courthouse. Yeah, was that?
My concern is that the way we approach the bond and the various departments, if that's going to be a supplement to it, it may change the dynamics of when and if those units are returned to various departments.
Well, I don't think this isn't going into that discussion or decision. This is just making sure we maintain property that's in the county.
I was wondering that, we had a listing of all fire departments with all of their needs that was just on that sheet. For all those things completed.
No.
Okay,
We're working toward, and we've had, county building grounds that's helped us, with about 30 items on the list, and it's been small things like repairing awnings that were loose, lights out in bays that just needed a ballast or bulbs or.
I'd say that's ongoing, is it not?
Yeah.
They are still working on it.
because I thought it was a set amount that was set aside for that. And I was just trying to make sure that, we had enough money to complete those particular items that was on that list. We had a list one time, I think, I don't know how many pages on it.
Yeah, it's the list we started with back in 2014, 15, and that's a lot of that has been completed. I would say 80 5%, but there's still some stuff. One of the big things that was on there is like, it said repair the insulation on the bay walls. But there's no real repairing the insulation other than putting like plastic on it and taping it like a patch. The only way to replace that is to take the entire exterior panels, walls off the fire station, take all the insulation off and put new on, and then put all the panels back on. That's just, that'd be so costly.
If you're working on pricing for anything on that list that. Understand the conversion.
Kind of what we did with the Reno well situation, we got it. They're supposed to be fixing it this week. So we're trying to knock out things that we can.
I was just trying to find some more money for them to complete those things, so it wouldn't. Somewhere else, yeah, we could go down on something else.
Well, do you have, not only do we have numbers, reality of what's needed, yeah.
No, and with the market like it is, with construction costs, I would have to get several bids to even get a number close.
Well, the one we needed, I only needed. For that.
Equipment maintenance is the same, 25,000. Vehicle maintenance, this is the vehicle maintenance lot where we send a truck that our mechanic can't fix out somewhere, we have to pay somebody to fix it. We've been good with that, 40,000. Copier lease was one drop to 5,000. We're doing something different with the copiers. All this, the postage is fine. The insurance 180's fine. Cell phone's good. Telephone's good. The office telephone is 16,000. We budgeted that in 2023. We've not spent any of it. And I don't know how that's already tried to get that fixed a couple of times. I don't know how we're not getting paid. I guess the building's getting paid, county's paying the home. I think we're linked in with 911. I'm not sure. We used to pay something, but we hadn't received a bill. Really was working on that.
One of y'all will have to get with,
Yeah.
it's just not getting coded properly. It has in years past, but
Yes.
for some reason, 2022, it's not like it's coded properly.
Clinton fire contract,
We'll come back to that.
okay. Rural fire, 95,000 is correct. Volunteer fire stipend, 150,000 is correct. We don't,
Let's back up to that one. real quick. According to this sheet, as of December, now these numbers, this projected. I'm sorry, the actual column is through December of last year, for everybody's knowledge. And why have there been zero volunteer fire stipends paid at Christmas this year?
because the volunteer fire departments had not turned in their stipend paperwork and W-9s to process. to Get it started. We didn't receive that until first week of December. And then we started the process and sent it to.
4 months into. Okay, 4 months into this half of the year. Where would you say we are on payout so far?
We have 7 of the 10 volunteer fire departments that are participating. We only had 6. The 7th one just started, Western Lawrence. They got all their paperwork turned in to us last week.
Why aren't we giving this to all of our volunteer fire?
Because we have fire chiefs that are not turning in any of the paperwork that's required for them to get the stipend.
That's disappointing.
Is there a reason why? Are they giving some sort of explanation?
They just don't, they say that their departments do not want to participate. Now, in a couple of stipulations in the stipend programs we put in there was that they had to turn in a signed sheet, a signed incident report for each call they ran. So they could go back to the station, they had to write a report up. They put it into the computer system. We requested signed copies so that we would have signatures showing that those individuals were at the station, ran the call, whatever.
So turn in the time card.
Right, basically, just to kind of back up what they're saying. We also asked that they were to be up to date on putting their reports into the computer system. 3 of these fire departments are about 6 to 9 months behind in entering reports into the computer system. That's also a big problem, that they just are not entering reports. So if they don't enter reports, we don't have any documentation to know who to pay. If you don't enter a report with who responded, we have no way to know who to pay. Yeah, and that is state required different reporting, that they're not,
So they're not completing their state required reporting. So are we paying them their quarterly check?
we are paying the quarterly, yes, we are paying the quarterly check, but the difference required reporting is for data collection only. It's not, it does not cut them out of being an actual accredited fire department. The state frowns on it. But they, St. Juan has never done anything, you know, they've never took a stance to say, well, if you don't do your difference, we're gonna take your charter, shut it down. They hadn't done that.
We just three are participating in the volunteer.
Joanna, Cross Hill, and Gregory. Like I said, the only requirement for them to participate is they have to enter their reports, which for them to get any federal funding, grant wise, they have to be reporting the difference. Now, the state does not, at this time, does not require them to report the difference to get state grants. But I think that's coming down the road next year. They're gonna require that.
You think they need some assistance?
I've offered assistance. I've told them, you know, they would, you know, I'm not gonna do them all forward, but I said, hey, you can find a paper report where you filled out the information, who responded, what you did, you know, the times that you, and all that, but they don't have data, or they,
Crossville is one of these three, right?
yes.
You're asking for 6 full-time ad counts to cover that area. Which I'm coming up with, based on your number you gave us, the fourth range, $337,000. So we attempted to offer a volunteer program because everybody was screaming that we couldn't get volunteers. And they chose not to participate, and are choosing to continue not to participate. And it's gonna cost us potentially $337,000 because they don't fill out these paper. Is that what I understood correctly?
Yes, sir.
Go ahead.
They used to have a very active group of volunteers. And I can't tell you, I think age might be the reason for some of it. And I can't put my hand on all of it, but they hardly don't have anybody to do anything over there anymore. Even a couple of months ago, was some water running in the, something happened over there with the water. Somebody had to call me just so I can get in contact with the mayor, just so they could stop.
Yeah.
Water running in the place because wasn't anybody there. So that's why I know that they need some help in some of the fire stations, because they do not have people who they can call on like they used to before that, to come and help them out. I don't know if it has something to do with the changes of jobs and going into another area, but that area over there is a good area of people, but it's just that, right now, they don't have anybody in there, who can do anything, or either there anytime to, help out.
That actually proves my point. Now, the other two, I think are pretty strong volunteer departments. But we have one that is not, and they're choosing not to take advantage of a program the council elected to implement last budget cycle. I just am surprised by that. Luke, you start that conversation. Luke, I apologize. Do you have anything else on that? But you're discussing with the 150, but obviously they don't care enough to use it, so there's a reason we are keeping it at 150.
I just did that because I really don't have a good year of data to know what put in there. I mean, the 150 was an estimate last year we put in, not knowing how many were going to participate, and then it's based on call volume. With us starting this in December, actually starting in December, we don't run it 6 months. I mean, I really don't have a lot of data yet to be able to tell you if that's adequate, too much, not enough. I would probably say that the 150 is probably more than what we need at this point if we stay at the numbers that are taking advantage of it. But my hope is that as the other volunteers are talking to others and saying, well, how did you get $200 back to the county? That will help to kind of get these others to get on board. And like I said, it's not a ton of money, but we have some volunteers who are making $300 or $400 a month. And they're retired, they're on fixed incomes, but they're the ones that are in the daytime. He retired with being one of them. Miss Ann, Miss Jean, they are. And Brown, I took, I put 150 back, I just don't know.
Is there anything you think council could do to encourage those volunteer departments to participate?
I think that council, I've sent out multiple reminders to volunteer chiefs, contract into contract requirement, paperwork due by May 15th this year. That's all their stuff, but the records are supposed to turn in, their Secretary of State, their audit materials and all that. I think if they don't comply, then we gotta,
I think what you're asking to do is.
hold money. I think some of them are afraid, or they think that this is going to make them employees of the county, but it doesn't. They're getting paid like they're a contractor. They get paid to a W-9, not like a W-4 where we're, they're not considered an employee. But I think some of it is they just don't want to do it.
All right, well, we'll leave 150 for the time being.
Training at 10,000 is what we asked for. That's good. The travel 3,500 is good. 800 radio fee. We have I initially put in 120,000. The budget we're in now is 130,000. This year is, we just started a couple of months ago after we got all of the 235 portables and 109 mobile radios installed and programmed and on the system, getting the full bills that we're going to be receiving. With that being said, what we're anticipating is a little bit over $14,000 monthly, and the 130 or 120,000 will cover that. So I asked to increase it until we can see. And I've talked to the state. I think there's a way that we can cut down the user fees. And it would be to take the trucks that are not first out, that are the backup trucks that don't run a lot of calls, and put them on a per minute basis. And all you have to do is if that truck, is gonna have to be moved or put in the front line service, we call down and say, hey, we need radio such and such, I need something such, cut off with the monthly plan. So we don't get charged, wrong fees and that kind of stuff. That would save us, that would take those radios from $41.10 a month user fee to $16.99 a month. Yeah, so I'm looking at doing that. But I would like to keep the 170 in there until we can see our way to make sure that, we're gonna be able to do that. Computer supplies, that's just replacing, a couple of computers or iPads. I'd like to keep, that's 5,000 is good. Fire prevention at 10,000 is good. Office supplies at 2,500 is good. Postages, that's also a good number. The uniforms, same as, well, we asked a little bit more, it's going to get more positions, which is going, it's going to cost a little more. Vehicle maintenance is a huge increase of 100,000 to 200,000. But if you look over what projected we're spending, cost of parts is through the roof. And our mechanic that he's fixing things the right way. In the past, I didn't know this until after he started, but there was some parts we were buying that were not really rated for what they were, like brakes and all. So I think Katie's doing a great job, but it's just, and we've added from 2011, we did the one lease, we did the other one here 2 years ago, but new trucks, everything we buy now has the DEF on it. And that's very expensive when those go down, get stocked up, and that's costing a lot of money too. But I'm asking to double that. As you can see, we're way over.
Good trucks equipped with automatic burnout.
They are. But that doesn't always work like it's supposed to. And then just the idle time around, it's just sitting somewhere.
Well, that's what causes a lot of, that's why it's got all that.
Vehicle fuel, we got this, the numbers of 60,000, 90,000 will be good for those. The rural utilities, you're gonna see a reduction in that one. That reduction is because we have done over the past 2.5 months, we have cut off all Dish Network, DirecTV bills, and the majority of the landline phones from all the volunteer fire departments, so they really don't use it. They don't, everybody got cell phones. Most of them got smart TVs where they can watch Roku TVs. So what I did is I sent out an email about a month and a half ago asking fire departments, if you don't have a smart TV in your day room, we'll buy you a smart TV. In return, we're gonna cut you his network bill that's $100 a month off. But this will allow you to watch what you want to watch. We bought 4 TVs. We were able to cut that off, and it's saving us $34,000 a year. Cut those. They're not losing anything. But and ISO does not require us anymore to have a landline phone number listed for fire department. So that's why we cut those off. So that's going to hopefully be a good savings for us in the utility side. Machines and equipment, 15,000 is also good for us. Office furniture, 1,000. Firefighting equipment, you're going to see a reduction in that. That is just because a lot of stuff that they've been asking for the past couple of years is not anything that they need. It's a want. It's like, I want a new light bar for my truck. There's nothing wrong with the light bar you got. It's just they want a new one. Well, so we're not going to keep doing that. So we're going to cut back in that line item. They're they're still gonna get their equipment they need, but they're not gonna get the little wants. Audit bank charges is good. Contingency, $12,000, I like, just keep that, because we don't ever know when something comes up, it just gives us a little cushion. Tax rebate on volunteers is 6,000. And, that's pretty much operating budget other than the, contract.
I am curious about the back of the fuel. Why is, the rural fuel 50% more than?
Okay, so if y'all remember, so the right fuel cards are all set up by individual fire departments. So you've got Cross Hill, got an account, River Creek's got an account, each. So when Eco closed and come under Lawrence County Station 21, Bay Department, Waterloo closed, and Young's went under, we had to, reassign stuff. Billy said it would be better on his side to keep tracking. So the trucks for Ecom, to keep them assigned to Ecom's account, one for Waterloo, keep them assigned to Waterloo's account. So what's happened, and he probably didn't think about this, but what's happened is the Waterloo account and the Ecom account, the Young's account, comes out of rural fire. Even though they're now being ran by the PayStack.
Okay, that makes sense.
Okay,
One other line that I wanted to question on. Rural fire district. In years past, you presented us with a breakdown, I guess, of the, set the list of what's on different
right,
departments.
yes.
Do you have that this year?
I don't have it from everybody, but I've had it here.
So is it not a yes, or is that?
Well,
Or is it
what,
going on last year?
I'm going off last year because the last 2 years, pretty much gave them about the same amount of money, both years around. It's just really between a lot of grants they've got and some other funding sources, but it's not a lot. Also, the reason I asked to reduce it to 235 to 202 is they started this year with the set aside a lot of every volunteer fire department got in BC grant for $13,300 to buy equipment. Next year, it's gonna be 20,000. That's guaranteed state money for the next 3 years. So if they're getting that kind of money from the state, I thought we could, reduce our a little bit because they're getting, they're getting.
Randall, I mean, what all goes in that one? Obviously, we pay the fuel, pay the light bill, we own the trucks, we do the maintenance on the trucks. We offer a stipend,
Yes.
someone that participated. So what does that line item actually go for?
Which one you talking to?
Rural fire district.
You talking about the one that's 202.
Yeah, 566. I'm still going.
The rural fire district 56,014 is 95,000. That is their general operating budget. That's like office supplies. They get $2,000 and other or miscellaneous things they need. And I can send that to you. It's just the kind of like what we have up here is a little operating budget they get.
Okay.
And that's it. Because everything else you see in our budget, the utilities, it's coming out of utilities, where the visual maintenance comes out of visual maintenance. And so they're getting, all of them are getting about almost $10,000 a year of money it's in a little budget, it's got it broke down by line item. But it's basically money that they have that they, and they need to buy pens, pencil, paper, staples, and stapler. Their general operations that they have.
And that's out of their contract, correct?
Right, and that's the only money, so when you see their contract and it says that Cross Hill's getting 9,500. That's the 9,500 they're talking about, cause a lot of the turnout here they get as capital comes out of the 74555. The, nozzles and hoses they're going to get comes out of 745, it doesn't come out of that 95,000, it comes out of this 202 at the bottom down here. So they're getting that, they're not getting the money, they're not getting cash, they're not getting checks for the 202,000, that's being bought out of the side.
Well, that's what I was asking.
Yeah, that's 95 is what is going, that's their portable checks they're getting. Which has been greatly reduced from what it was, because we're paying
As
the
it should.
majority of the cost.
Yeah.
today.
And we should, I'm not arguing that, I was seeing what the other money. All right. Question from other council members on budget line items.
Broadcast now.
Yes. The best of knowledge are, I like to know.
Great. I know we kind of skipped over it a little bit, but can you go back to the FICA and just explain that, roughly $25,000 increase?
Maybe a Renee. Request. No, I don't think the FICA, they figure, that's the FICA.
That's the adjustment if we had the added new positions.
Yes, that would be what that is.
That's actually based on the number at the top, the 1,508,000.
But that's not,
The new employees is right beneath there, the 34, 294.
so the
Very young.
reason would be that there's CPI or COLA figured in that salary line. Which I believe Thomas is 6%.
So we're basing it on 6% right now, and just to add a little bit of clarification for discussion purposes on the stipend funds. We're averaging about, get my notes here. I want to say we're averaging about $4,500 and we have to pay out on that. We look up the numbers, discussing it. So again, we don't have, so 6 grand, right? We don't have much data to go off on, so it's relatively new. And so as you go along over time, they have more people participating, they have less, but only in the short term end, we're averaging about 4,500.
Any other questions? If not, we'll jump back to the contract. We'll skip over that. The address council, that's the picture.
And so, I'm sorry, we go back.
Anybody have any other questions on any line items? So,
So, this is a question, and that, I just, example, I just noticed that, doing an 8.2% increase, and, the amount going extra funds about 1%, something like that, sort of goofy. In other words, we don't even get the living raise everybody else gets.
it should be the same as the, on we're giving all our employees.
Well, they're showing the tax rate going up by 8.22%, right? And that is supposed to look correct. And that would yield, that would 8.2% would yield $26,500 more dollars. And so that's.
But the amount that's currently in the line is 337,860.
So last year, it was like 220.
No, last year it was 321,000.
So 337 is like $10,000 less than just giving them a cost of living raise. So it's giving them half of what we're giving everybody else. Just for value purposes, I want you to look at, what we're proposing to pay for the new employees at Cross Hill, for example. And it's, $450,000. If you add 20% fringes on that, it's about $540,000, which is double what we're paying Clinton. I mean, it's just a disconnect between those kinds of numbers, and that, it's just looking at the area that it did, multiplying it times the way it's producing about $545,000 of revenue, and that we're trying to spend a little over half of that with them and subsidize everybody else in the county with that largesse, and do even more of that this year by not even bringing them up along the same lines as everybody else. And I was just looking at the map of what it includes, and that it's really some of the more difficult firefighting challenges out there. I mean, you've got PL developments from alcohol and Carolina Shadings with dust. It covers the hospital, Blue Diamond, Southern Aluminum, where you're running, so much electricity through there to create so much heat that natural gas can't even produce it. You've got the major interstate access, where you're running the daily runs out there to it. And, you look at it, the areas around Lawrence, where Lawrence already told us to take a hike, that they don't even want that amount of money. And we're having to spend almost $500,000 more to man stations around the city of Lawrence. Fountain told us to take a hike. And I'm just sitting here thinking, that's not really the way that I envision this thing unfolding. That we're in a circumstance where we're moving demographically from a situation where everybody who was in the volunteer fire department or handling the war zone, I was there in 1985, let's say, they were business owners. They own stores, and they own lumber company, and they own self-service, the full service gas station, and those people were the, and those businesses are either they go to Lowe's, or they're neither not there, or they're owned by or somebody else, and the person that is managing the home is not able to become a volunteer firefighter. So we're moving from a situation where you're going from almost exclusively volunteer. In fact, back in the 80s, the volunteers were in charge of suppression. I mean, they were actually the chief and the assistant chief, and they were complete volunteers. And so we're moving from that, and over the next 10, 20, 30, 40, 50 years, it's going to be completely paid. That people are going to be working in places they can't get away from. They're going to be working 20 or 30 miles from home. And we already see that and showing up in areas like Cross Hill and other places. And Cross Hill's, difficulty rating for the thing is nothing like the other. Not comparable, not close. Doesn't produce the amount of revenue, doesn't produce doesn't produce the amount of complexity, doesn't require the same type of equipment and so forth. And so, my point about that is that this doesn't just fall back on the people that are in that donut around the city of Clinton, it falls back on the homeowner in Clinton. And that, the best evidence of the value of it is that Lawrence and Fountain Inn have already told us that they don't need that money. It's not worth it given the amount of difficulty they have. As we go forward, those companies, those firefighting entities are coming out of their place on the mutual aid agreement. They are fighting the fires all around. And so, places like Cross Hill are having to respond to about that. And, when I was on council for the first time, ending with a 10-year gap in it, Greg, we had this conversation. I said, why don't you just give that donut back to the city of Lawrence? And the response was, I wouldn't have anybody to fight fires with all over the county during the day. And I had some question in my mind as to whether that was true or not. I did brought a tournament to Clemson to determine whether what Greg had said was correct. This is 12 years ago, 15 years ago. And of course, he was correct that we can't get 4 people to a structure fire in a lot of these volunteer areas during the day. Okay, but that's the big problem. The people who take fire, the volunteers are still willing, they're just not able. So as I see this thing unfolding, that my vision for it is to have a paid department in Clinton to serve that end of the county. We really don't want to turn it over. The history of Clinton in terms of being able to serve the area around it, whether it be natural gas, whether it be water, sewer, whether it be recreation, that they've taken responsibility for that area, including fire. And don't really want to walk away from it, that we look at that area around us as our charge and that we think they contribute to the city and the city contributes to them and we want to be a part of the community. Ladies and gentlemen, I'm being treated fairly. And nobody can look at this and be qualified for jury duty. And I'd like to see us, well, and I realize that we're going to be blood donors in this, we don't want to be organ donors. Now, we don't want to be in a situation where you make it untenable, where the city of Clinton just says, what? We're not doing this anymore. This is gonna be more expensive, I promise, that mathematically, you can't serve the area that the Clinton, the area is serving for $326,000, you can't do it. It's costing you that more than that, to put people out of cross health habits. You could go to Clinton and ask them if they would cover it for me and pay them $200,000 or $300,000 and see if they would cover it. So I'm just saying that it's not a fair way to divide up the responsibility. And then I'd like to see us add another $100,000 to it, so that they're blood donors and not organ donors. That's the way I see it. And I don't. Yeah, I think that anybody who can't see that is qualified for jury duty. That's all for now, Ms. Jones.
All right. And to clarify the increase, by the way, it was actually not the 6% that we have for our employees. It's actually 5% over last year, which is the COLA that the city of Clinton is proposing for their employees. I would actually be extremely willing to, if we're going to increase the millage 8.22, that we increase that 8.22. Agree that it might be fair. As far as cost and running, I have a genuine question for the two. Well, you live in the city, do you? You live in the city of Clinton? You don't. So I have a question for the one councilman who lives in the city of Clinton. So we constantly run mutual aid calls into the city limits of Clinton. Just like where I live, nobody in the city of Clinton pays a dime towards the county fire service. And we pay them to come into our area and have a contract and argue if it's good, bad, or different. Should the city of Clinton pay the county when we have to respond to a city fire?
I think that if you look at the amount of mutual aid that was on balance between the two, you'd be embarrassed to find that the city of Clinton is providing quite a bit more than they're getting. Okay. I don't have any doubt about that at all, and that can be documented. Or somebody will ask them to do it, but they have the full-time people is the point. They have people there during the day who can respond to a fire, and the people that are in the volunteers do not. And I've proven that to my own satisfaction statistically by looking at the call reports as much as 10 years ago. And I guarantee it's worse than that.
Greg, how many calls in the contracted area this past year? Do we know?
Okay, they ran in the county contracted area 377.
377 calls. Yes, sir.
That's in the contracted area that they provide coverage for the county.
A little better, barely better than one a day. Roughly.
Yes. I mean, that's the number is 377.
I asked the fire chief from Clinton today, how many times they had been, for example, in Fort Worth. And he said they went 4 times in 2 shifts last week. So I'm just saying.
Yeah. That's not part of their contract area. That's all we're discussing.
But what I'm saying is the mutual aid is coming out of Clinton more often than is coming in terms of dollar value. If you look at the number of people that come out of
But
Clinton.
it's mutual. Newberry shows up in World War II.
Yeah, but
I mean, that's part of the mutual aid thing. We're talking about a contract where we're paying somebody to cover a specific area. If they're going to Norwood, that's a whole nother discussion outside of this stuff. Is it in their contract that they provide mutual aid outside of their done what?
it's in the statewide mutual aid that they provide.
It might as well be.
Yeah.
Everybody does it, knows that that's part
Now,
of it.
I would say this just for the, the county fire service is providing more automatic aid today to the city of Clinton than what we have in the past. And that is only because, 2 years ago, the county fire service went from calling out 3 fire departments to a structure fire to go to 4. And that was to get more manpower off the bat. even though the departments are coming further away, we're getting more people moving that way initially. Philip Ruff was chief at the time, and Philip asked us to do that as well. We were not doing that. So Clinton, before 2021, they would, they would respond to a structure fire, county, city, whatever. If they needed help, they would just call dispatch and say, hey, send help. But what we do now is if Clinton has a structure fire in the city limits or in the county area that they cover, they get dispatched, and 3 county fire departments automatically get dispatched with them on every structure fire. So
I'll pay them $325,000 a day to cover a particular area of our county. And every time they have to go to a fire, we're having to send 3 more trucks on top of that.
But we're sending 3 more departments to do type of trucks.
Well-
Money takers, personnel, but it's mainly, yes, we're sending 3 of our departments as mutual aid, yes, sir. Or automatic aid.
So that's like me paying somebody to cut my grass and have to go out and weed eat while they're cutting grass.
No, it's not. It's nothing like that. It's like having a fire at your house and having your neighbors come help you when you go help them to put out their fire. That if you want to look at the economic value of what's being provided by Clinton, look what you're proposing for Cross Hill. A far lesser area in terms of, sometimes people catch on fire. Sometimes the wood catch on fire. Most of the time it's property that catches on fire. And the assessed value of the property is not a terrible way to fund a fire service for that reason. The area around Clinton is infinitely richer than the area around Cross Hill in terms of the amount of assessed value and the difficulty, let me finish this, and the difficulty of fighting them. I mean, you have to have different equipment to be able to reach the upper floors of the hospital, for example. To be able to deal with special situations like gunfire and to deal with situations like dust and so forth down in Northport. You have to have more powerful equipment. So looking at it, for example, Mr. Chairman, from the standpoint of what you're giving to the people, there's people involved in this as well. I'm glad we've got a capital budget that we're looking at. I'm just saying that when we're paying Clinton, we're paying for the trucks and the men and the fuel and the whole thing. We're looking at the whole picture. And that I think that if you fairly assess the amount of mutual aid coming out, you would find it's in excess of the mutual aid coming in.
Mr. Chairman,
Yes, ma'am.
I really think the contract agreement that we do have with Clinton is viable, and I think that with the 5% increase in it was a good way of going about doing what we're doing this evening. If I realize that Mr. Tribble lives within the city limits and he talked with the fire chief, but I feel like if the fire chief want anything any different, he can come and talk to us. But I really think it's been fair to me what's in this right now,
Well,
but that's my opinion.
so I think we should offer mutual aid to everyone,
That's
as
what
we
we're
usually
supposed
do,
to.
and everyone should do the same. But here, if we're toning out 3 more departments to every fire call, we're only running 377 calls. And is that the most in the past 5 years, or has it gone up or down, or do you have those numbers?
Yeah, I mean, I'll put them all.
You don't have to read them all. Is that the most calls that have come done like past 3 to 5 years?
No, sir. The most were in 2019. That was 429. 2020 was 350. 2021 was 338. And 2022 was 377.
What was 2019 for?
429.
Average, that's 371. Do we not have the manpower to run an extra call a day?
It's about the distance and where our paid personnel are at. We don't have a lot of, we've got in Waterloo, we've got them around Lawrence, we don't have anybody.
Well, if you had an extra $325,000, you'd be able to have people, right?
Yes, we can hire people, yes, but we'd have to.
You can't cover Cross Hill for that. What makes you think you can cover the area around Clinton for that?
We're covering Cross Hill now with nothing.
You're covering Cross Hill now was suggested $540,000, Mr. Chairman.
We're covering Cross Hill today with nothing. There, I mean,
This
are we
budget
not?
covers $540,000 for manpower in Cross Hill.
Yeah, it could be.
That includes the desk.
Yeah, that's also the next station. The man, I read the numbers a while ago. Cross Hill.
Yeah, I'm sorry, David, that's eight positions, that's people from this, you have to go. It's, 56,000, and this is just the salaries. It's 56,196 per position, so you multiply that times six would be,
It's 337.
But we're already going anyways, right?
yes, we're just going further. Coming further away, we're not. What,
I think it's about time we start looking at covering ourselves and get our truck back too, that we gave them last year. Because not only are we writing the check, we're also giving them apparatus to do it, if they ask for it. And usually, I will say, this council's been very good about increasing it, because years ago, they didn't get any increases. It was a shame. And we tried to increase it. They asked for an apparatus 2 years ago, they didn't get one, they did get it last year. Thank goodness, they deserve it. Given that most of their trucks are not tankers, it makes perfect sense that they were having to come outside the county, that they have a tanker to do it with, and we provide the insurance on it and pay the maintenance on it, put tires on it, and everything else on top of that, just as we do for our rural districts. Because I think some of that gets forgotten while we're doing it.
Okay. So the difference between, I think, the ask for the additional personnel for, say, Cross Hill is that they have now a defunct response area with no coverage at all, that we're responsible for providing coverage. Do I think that they have a huge call volume, or that the population is similar to the area around Clinton? That's not. But Clinton already has infrastructure and has people there, so we're subsidizing them essentially the cost of 4 personnel, 3 personnel. You said $56,000 a person,
yes,
so 5. Maybe we're paying for the equivalent of 5 of their people, using them to cover that area. Knowing that we still need to work together as a partner and do mutual aid, those kind of things. It's not a competition between the municipality of Clinton and Cross Hill or Waterloo or anything. It has to do with providing the coverage to the citizens in those areas, and they won't exclusively live in just Cross Hill. They're going to go wherever. It's like an EMS truck. It's going to be pulled wherever they're needed, and most of the time they're going to be pulled on all their responses, because very few will probably originate in that area, but they will be able to now cover more adequately that whole area. Maybe 6 is too many. I don't know. I'm not advocating for anything per se, but I will say that Clinton does a great job and is a good partner, and they deserve some compensation, which is why we do it. Why would they do it for free? It does cost money to run a thing, but they do have a tax base for their operations, and we fund a little extra to help cover that area if we need to increase it, because there's tangible increase of CPI. If it's 8% and they need 8%, that's a reasonable ask. 30% increase without showing a 30% increase in call demands or anything is a bit of a leap to me, unless they can show that the expense was that much more. I don't want it to be an argument, because it's not. I mean, we support and appreciate what's going on. It doesn't have to be a competition, but those are 2 totally different things. The need to provide fire coverage in an area where a fire department closed down or they don't have any, versus bolstering or paying for the things that in an area that is fully fire capable, 2 different animals. So I don't want us to get caught up in that. That's just my personal opinion.
I've made this argument before and lost, and that may happen again. But I'm gonna end with this, that I've been involved in this since 1979. And never in my entire life has someone from that district told me they wanted to be covered by somebody from Cross Hill. No industry, no person.
I do have a question to piggyback off this. Fire chief's not here, city manager's not here, mayor's not here, member of council's not here. Is this an advocation from you as a representative of that district, or are you here in their stead arguing for their increase? Because it being a contract, whoever's on the other side of that contract should be arguing for it to increase. It's almost a conflict of interest for any council member up here to be advocating on the other side of the contract.
Sorry, did you discount my advocacy that way, Mr. Chairman?
So once
I'm
again,
fully capable of representing.
okay, so you represent the city of Clinton asking for an increase in the power contract. So your request for the increase is to what dollar amount?
Let's add 50 to what they had last year.
371 and some change. And continue use of the apparatus outside. Greg, you mentioned it earlier that we've moved dispatch from 3 departments to 4 departments for fire. Is that accurate?
Yes, and that's just because of. And they just, it's just when we have fewer volunteers. So, yes. So we're having to go further. I to get more, but, and we may end up going to 5. But,
Any council member opposed to the current contract line item moving to 371,773? Anybody else?
I do have a question about the number, not that I'm against increasing it, because I'm not against if it's necessary or needed, but arriving at that number more than we're going to increase any of other, I guess, coverages, our own, the county's responsibility, other municipalities. Why that number versus similar to what we agreed on or will agree on to what we're increasing our own coverages? Does that make sense?
And I just felt since, the administrator had looked at it, they offered a 5% increase at the city. And we added a 5% increase to what we had on last year, that we was dealing fairly with them. Not trying to abuse them at all, but just being fair and fair with everyone with the same amount of money, and that's what I think would be applicable. I just don't like to come up with a number and throw a number out. You got the number centered around some service that's being given. It's totally different.
So I personally have, I can live with 371 that's been requested by Mr. Cripple. But I would love to hear from Clinton directly, not that Mr. Cripple can advocate for him by any means, but I'd also like to probably evaluate that contract and what their responsibilities are. Honestly, probably need to look at volunteers too, but I'll call this in a minute. But it's a contract. We're paying them to provide a service. I guess I get mutual aid when we have a massive. Everybody's coming. If the hospital catches on fire, everybody in Lawrence is coming, Newberry's coming, Greenwood's coming. They'll probably pull some out of Greenwood. Everybody's coming up. I get that. The day to day, we're paying a substantial amount to have an area covered. I think it should be covered. without much of our help. For regular events. Yes, ma'am.
I just want to make sure that we are covering some areas that are needed, like like full-time firefighters that we need over in Cross Hill. If that's gonna, some things you have to do to make sure that we are giving service to Cross Hill. So I want it to be applicable so we can make sure we providing the service where they are needed and giving the amount of money that's where they're needed. We need this, they don't have any service at all right now in Cross Hill. So they deserve,
Yes, sir. Sorry. I didn't catch you. Hang on one second.
they deserve service. So I feel like if you don't have any service, you deserve service, but if you already receiving service, we're gonna try to work with you the best we can to keep your service at the level that is needed.
That's true.
I mean, it's just ironic that we're sitting here talking about a $50,000 increase for Clinton. We're talking about $500,000 for Cross Hill. And we're talking about not being able to justify increases. I'm just thinking this is a little puzzling. It could be talking about 1/10 of what we're talking about putting in the Cross Hill, just for people. So, I mean, the whole thing appears to be askew to me. Any way I value the proposition of what that service is being provided, I come up short, but I'm said as much as I need to say, and I'm gonna let it go with that, Mr. Chairman.
All right. Have you been adjusting as we're going in this point? The only thing we cut so far, the part-time salary, I think.
I have adjusted that. Hadn't adjusted Clinton all the way yet, because I was calculating it over to the side.
So can you, for discussion purposes, can you plug in 371,773 into the one fire contract and tell us what our revenue minus expenses comes up? This, and keep in mind, the council that does include the requested accounts.
Right now, after you put that in, it was at. My glasses. Well, make life a lot easier. It was at 1,375,807 deficit. Now the fire service is at 1,390,741 deficit.
390,741.
Yes, and the reason that there's a odd number in there, because the part-time salaries included the calculation. It wouldn't be dollar for dollar like you would think.
All right, so Greg, how do we cover your $1.4 million?
Mr. Chairman, I'm hoping y'all look forward to, the pressures of the Speedway Fund.
Even if we gave you what you got last, it wouldn't cover a third of it, or it would barely cover a third of it.
I'm gonna say,
Remind Mr. Chairman, this is a special purpose tax district, so we're capped out at the village. Other than your CPI.
We can subsidize it in the general fund.
You can subsidize the general. As far as
I mean, we can't
the
increase.
bag the mill. It's
The largest chunk of that obviously are the new head counts. Probably dive a little harder into the need of those head counts.
well, the six, and at first, let me say this. I am not up here suggesting to hire 6 firefighters to Cross Hill to and all place volunteers we have live down there that are running. You know, we still need volunteers. We still need to retain volunteers and get volunteers. Of course, we can never hire enough paid firefighters, not anytime soon, but to completely cover the county. That area does need help. The reason I said 6 is that gives you 2 a shift. That gives you 2 firefighters per day. All NFPA, follow OSHA regulations. We're required to have 2 in, 2 out at any structure fire. That means you got 2 firefighters packed out. They're going in the front door with a charge hose on, fight the fire. You got 2 outside packed out, ready to go in if those 2 get in trouble. It's 2 in, 2 out. We can do 3. We can start, but that's one person on a truck by themselves. That makes it a lot more dangerous, a lot more, I think, Cross Hill is a big area. And what we're doing right now is we're running the Waterloo truck to death. First done what, 2,000 miles on it? Fire engine is 2 years old, got over 2,000 miles on it. That's a lot of miles on a fire truck in 2 years. We just need help. We need some help.
So from the lake up to Joanne, going the eastern side of the county, what fire departments are available between the lake and Joanne? Is that just Cross Hill?
You got Cross Hill as far south, right there at the lake, and you got them in the Waterloo district kind of come together. Yep. So the Waterloo district is Station 21, Lawrence County Fire Department. Now that's the page for it. On the other side of Cross Hill, you got Mountville.
You have fire department in Mountville?
Yes, we have 2 in Mountville. We have one that's on Mark Teague Road, and we have one further up 72 that's right outside of Clinton on Milam Road.
It's not staff,
No, that's all volunteer. The only other backup we have that's close, but we would call if we had to, would be Clinton, coming down from Clinton. We don't call them often in Cross Hill, just call the distance it is. We would call Greenwood County, Tornado. That's one of our automatic aid departments from the Greenwood County across the lake.
Greg, how many paid staff do you have right now?
I have 24 48-hour shifts. I have 28.
28. How many new positions did we give you last year?
Gave me 4, and those 4 went to the nest. So I have 2 shifts. I have 10, and 1 shift has 8. That's where we need the other 2. The nest 24 hours a day. 2 firefighters.
So 12 new positions over 2 years, so almost 50% of it. Started with, which is, in my opinion, pretty exorbitant jump for just 2 years. I know there's a need. I know we're gonna need to start working towards.
We've had 3. We went from 10, well, we went from 13 volunteer fire departments to 10, we lost 3. 2 of those districts, we had completely absorbed with Station 21, because nobody around that we could give it to. Like the Youngs, we were lucky. We got Derby Creek, a strong department, Great Ridge, a strong department. We were able to kind of cut it out in a pie, and Jeff was involved with a lot of those meetings. Sandy was too. That was a board decision. They voluntarily wanted to turn it over and split it out. That's worked great, but we don't have that same ability in Cross Hill. Cross Hill is our biggest volunteer district. They operate 4 stations. So, it's just a lot of area to cover. It does have a seasonal increase in call volume. You know, the lake goes up, it can come down, you know, and stuff, but summer there, increase the call volume. I'm not suggesting, well, I am asking for these to be 24-hour positions. They would work in Cross Hill with about 12 hours a day. And that's just because that would save us going into it, having to outfit another station with sprinklers and bedrooms and all that. That would be probably another $150,000 to there in Cross Hill. But you know, any help is better than none. We just, you know, I've got 2 firefighters on one engine that's covering half of the Ecom district, all of the Waterloo area that was once covered by the Waterloo Volunteer Fire Department. And they are at least 50 to 60% of the time having to run back into Cross Hill on call. If not more than that. And we're having, it's almost monthly now that we're having to pull everybody we have around the donut area down to the lake for a fire to get enough manpower. We're having large city fire departments having to backfill us and cover our area around the donut and bars. Just to be able to get enough manpower to the lake or down that way. We're also calling Western Lawrence. We use them now a good bit. But we're doing everything we can to provide adequate. But you know, it's a long haul to send help from Lawrence and a fire engine that is governed at 65 an hour to me in that big game. All the way down 221, all the way Cross Hill over Warrenwood.
Recommendations, questions? Yes.
Two for the nest would complete the 6th ask that you had last budget year that you only got 4.
Correct.
And that would at least get operations going there.
Correct.
Probably work for. Because you wouldn't necessarily keep it. 6 others, I get you're trying to fill a ship, but is there any number that works? Or is it pretty good to have 6?
6 gives us. 6 would give us 24 hours a day. The 2 in, 2 out, 4 people in the south end of the district. South end of the county. You have 2 in Waterloo and 2 in Cross Hill. So if you had, like we did last year, a fire with a entrapment at the lake, would have been a fatality. You would have enough additional manpower getting on scene to go inside and do interior firefighting risk. That's what I'm trying to get to. We can, you know, we have to, we can do it less, but that would give us 4 firefighters in the south end of the county, which reduces us having to send as much personnel from the center. That's a 30-minute response down there to back them up.
Sir. Great. One of the things I hear from volunteers that part of all of this discussion is that when you're asking for these additional people, very often you're talking about 24-hour coverage, and it appears to me legitimately suggested that our biggest problem is going to be the day. The question is, why are we not concentrating those people during the day as opposed to spreading them out through the night when we tend to have a little bit better coverage? We tend to be saying, I want that many equal numbers around the clock, and it appears the need is not quite that great. How about helping me out with that?
Well, we don't have, in most of our volunteer departments today, the evening numbers that we once had. It's still great, it's still better than daytime by far. We do have units spread throughout the county. That's why we've got the truck at Waterloo. The truck at Waterloo is a great location. It's on 221 South. It can go into Waterloo, down south, into Cross Hill. You can go across Nittany Berry, back toward Eagle Beach, West Lawrence.
I got the geography. I want to know about the time though. About the time of day.
So you're asking, could we do daytime fire? You're saying maybe.
I mean, that's what I hear when I talk to the volunteer chiefs, and what they're saying is that Greg's putting them on around the clock, and we have the greatest need during the day. Why don't you have more people during the day and fewer during the night? And it seemed like to me a reasonable question, but so.
Well, some of that has to do with, well, first off, with the station, with Lawrence County Fire Department in general, they have had the same issue that volunteers have. Their volunteer numbers are way down from what they used to be. We do have more volunteers at night. But we have tried, we've had part-time firefighter positions. We had we tried a Monday through Friday firefighter position. Those have not worked out well for us, because if you hire somebody daytime and they work 12-hour shifts, if you pay them the same hourly rate as you're paying the 24-hour people, they're still not making near at the end of the year what the 24-hour, because they don't have to build it overtime. They're not working those hours. If you pay those 12-hour people, and they're gonna work 5 days a week, or we can't work 5 days a week, but if you work them, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, off Thursday, Friday, work Saturday, it takes one, and you got to hire more. Well, you got to hire more. If you pay them a higher rate per hour, which you can do that, then that could run into a problem of,
Greg, I don't mean to interrupt you about this, but I prefer to hear you answer it relative to fighting fires rather than how much we pay in overtime. I'm not being overly, just really want you to direct your answer to that, please.
David, I've asked for 24, 48-hour positions, because when it comes to shift work, when it comes to providing coverage, I really don't know how you would work if you work more during the daytime and then you pull back and you don't work as many at night. We really don't have, so like Thompson Road, for instance. The Thompson Road station and the Nest station, they cover an area of the county that we want to pay valid in. So they have a dedicated district that they cover. If I work 4 people a day up in the north end, 2 at the Nest and 2 at Thompson Road, I've got no volunteers up there on that fire department at night to run. If I cut back, and I had 1 at Thompson Road, 1 at the Nest, but it's the same thing in Lawrence. Still don't have enough volunteers coming back on calls to not have the same number of firefighters that I have during the daytime paid working at night. I don't have Now, some of the volunteer departments may be able to put more people out at night. But in general, in the areas where we are covering, like in Waterloo, for instance, I can't put 2 people in Waterloo during the daytime till 7 p.m. at night and then cut back to 1, hoping that I'm gonna have the volunteers show up, because they haven't showed up over the past 3 years. I don't think they're gonna show up. Now, that's my problem down there.
You said 44% response time, what you told us a while ago, right?
44% in 2022. That's taken from January to December. Now,
What's the next closest district?
would be Mountville and
Not physically, percent of.
Sandy Springs is right at 90, not 91%,
And then everybody else is above that.
98, 90.
So all of our volunteer districts and our city Clinton contract are all above 90%, except for Cross Hill, who's at 44
44 to 50.
And not running medical costs.
and not running that low cost.
Not enough.
So we're not discussing volunteers and others. We're specifically discussing one volunteer area that has a 44% response time compared to everybody else's 90+.
Yes.
But I was asking, we were talking about the rural area, not the people who live in the city. You giving back to them. Help us out.
We've never want to go to the citizens, but. And that's the problem, is firefighters don't just fight fires anymore, they're going every medical call, every motor vehicle accident. That's what's working on people.
So it's actually a good thing to do.
Absolutely. But that's what those volunteer firemen who were adamant about fighting fires, as they should be, they don't necessarily care about the motor vehicle accident or the lift assist for the ambulance, so they're not gonna get out of bed at 2 in the morning. They'll get out of bed at 2 in the morning for fire, but they won't get out of bed at 2 in the morning. Go out the other. Another problem, so we choose to cover this from general fund revenues, but then that'll throw our general budget 1.4 in the red. We'll have to start cutting, slicing on that side of things.
Let me ask you this, for the volunteer fire. If I was a volunteer fire, I would probably be a little more anxious to go in daytime instead of 2 o'clock in the morning. Does that make sense?
Well, but
And I'm saying, has that got some bearing on why you probably got more at night than at day?
we currently have the same number day and night, because the areas that we're covering, we don't have a large number of volunteers in that area responding. So we keep our numbers the same, so that we know, hey, we got 3 working this area 24/7, we got 4 working this area, or 2 working or whatever. If we could find a way to get our volunteer numbers back up, then, we could slow down on the number of people we're hiring, but nobody has found a solution to how we do that, because a lot of the problem that we're facing is a social change, is a society change, is a generation change of a lot of your younger generations don't see the value of volunteering in their community service, and that's just what I've seen. That's just from my experience. Yes, we do have some young firemen. We have got quite a few from our Explorer Post and from doing school programs, and they, by the time they get out of high school, they're certified firefighters. That's helped us out some. Lawrence High School just started the program up, with that for a number of years. Even those numbers are low, though. They don't have a ton of skids complete that they have a few, but not many. I do think David's right. I do think, and we have more. From when I started in 2009, of how many I had 6 paid firefighters, I had 3 24-hour people and 3 daytime people. A total of 6. I got 28. But I also had almost 350 volunteers in 2010. And I've got probably 150 today. Now, we have 275 on the rosters, but that's not all. A lot of them are not the high call volume runner. They may be, they run a couple of calls, but they're not gonna be. If you look at our high call volume, people that are running calls, a lot of them are in their 60s. A lot of them are retired. A lot of them are close to 70. That's the ones running the calls, daytime. Still got some young ones, but that's not the majority. That's the ballpark. I know this is a burden on the county, and the county can't do it, can't do it, because it costs money. But I do think that this is a challenging time for Lawrence County. I don't think it's anything that we've done. I think it's, if you look at the rest of the counties around us, look at the state, country, what is going on here is going on everywhere else. We just don't have a volunteer base that we once had. And communities are struggling to provide. And we will keep doing what we're doing. We will do everything that we can to provide and get the job done. But I'm just, as our numbers drop, it's getting harder and harder to do that without more safety.
We're always here, we know that we're 1.4 in the red. I need some more discussion. I do have the number on fringe and everything. Every 2 head counts. 143,738. That's fringe, everything. 143,738. For everything.
I would recommend though that we complete what we started last budget year by adding the 2 FTEs for the nest bare minimum. Can't make the other work, can't make it work, you can't stretch it so far. I agree with Mr. Carroll. I think we move on to the 2 to fully operational. And then my thought process is kind of what we're doing, with some of the improvements, just incrementally every year, as the county grows, we can afford it. Find hard to add 60 positions. About that. I would if we.
Can you run us that number? We just had it to.
I've already started doing it.
And Ms. Anderson and I represent the majority of that Cross Hill Fire District. And I hate that, I'll be honest, I hate that they won't consider paying people to come volunteer. I don't in that whatsoever. They're the department that's struggling the most, and we've attempted to implement some of the county volunteers. And the one that's struggling the most refuses to participate. Find out what we can do, maybe help them participate.
Yeah, I'm comfortable seeing what we can do.
Not that that'll help, but at least we're trying. And they're choosing not to. Sometimes it's hard to help people that aren't helping themselves.
Still on 4.
Mr. Chairman. Yes, Mr. Chairman. So just adding the 2 brings your budget to a $941,426.
Read that out one more time.
941, 426.
And 141, 426. About where we were last year.
I was already cutting it way back. That was-
And I agree with Anderson.
I need one more, maybe.
The money is like, I mean, that is the time.
I understand, that's why I didn't want anything else to go up, because I know the need was, for individuals, meet people in place, so that's. Want everything else to stay low as much as possible can, and then so we can get those individuals into place that we need to have. Needed.
What's our objective for the evening, Mr. Chairman?
Some conclusion on how we move forward with our debts. That figure.
And we voted to cover it last year. It was up to, that's not the word, but. So whatever the deficit is on this year. So projected today. Because it's figured off of doubling the actuals, but it's showing a deficit of 691. So we wouldn't, they wouldn't automatically get the million, they would get the 690.
Mr. Chairman, I'm making an observation, that I do not believe that over the next 20 years that limitation of population plus inflation is going to take care of the trend that we're seeing about the number of volunteers and the contribution that values of the contribution that they make to fires, and that we're going to have to find an alternate way to fund it to be viable over that. So, I don't think it can be done within that structure. Over time, it could be done in a year or 2 years, and we've done that kind of thing in the past. We end up abusing our people, we end up taxing our employees in effect. Then we have to come back and fix it with pony and increases and stuff just to get competitive again. I don't like that. I don't think that's the way you ought to do. You ought to be paying competitive rates the whole time, and we have to do to get there. So I'm not opposed to implementing this from the general fund for that reason.
I agree. I do agree too that the millage today is on cause of either stagnation. And then we just kind of hit it all at one time with multiple volunteers closing. And there isn't enough there by any percentage to get it where it needs to be. The only option on that would be referendum. Change that, correct?
Yeah, change the whole scope of the special purpose district.
That might be this conversation we have to have at some point. So the verbiage in the ordinance we approved last week was already in there to cover this overage, while the numbers. So are you recommending that we approve this same we did last year? Obviously, the same verbiage as last year.
I can live with that.
Is it,
Not to exceed.
not to exceed, yeah. Same as what we'll just basically do exactly what we did last year unless somebody,
And those 2 new employees and 50 for Clinton, is that right, Mr. Chairman?
sorry, Mr. Cole.
What we're talking about is 50 increase for Clinton and 2 new employees for.
At the moment, that's correct. That's the only change over outside of,
This would be what, first reading on that? Or
we did first reading name on this, so when we, at the end of the month, we'll have second reading. That will be it. The national numbers will be in there, so on and so forth. I would, in the meantime, well, it won't affect my vote on the increase to Clinton. However, I would really like to see the actual numbers of calls responded to in donuts versus calls that we have to also respond to in the donut and calls we respond to within the city limits. I think those numbers for all the council would be educational, so that we can, and if they want to renegotiate a contract, I wish they could call the administrator and set up a meeting and negotiate a contract.
we sent him over here.
So they know it, it's not like he's a stranger. But yes, I am not opposed to 50,000 if any councilman wants to make a motion otherwise. I mean, I can twist those numbers to tell you that that's still not enough. I can twist them to tell you that it's too much. Go ahead.
As a question, so am I to go ahead and redraft the contract with Clinton as a draft proposal?
Where are we on the contract?
Not comfortable discussing a contract with them until I have guidance from this elected body as far as what my parameters of discussion are.
So at some point between now and June 23rd, when our last meeting is, I'll love to see a copy of that contract. Is there anything they're asking to change in the current contract besides the dollar amount?
No, the only, well, we had just a 30-minute meeting of week about the new fire marshal and who's the AHJ, and but we've worked it all, yeah, I think that's pretty.
So I would request that the attorney and administrator and the fire director get with the city of Clinton and their appropriate people and present us a copy of that contract at a regular council meeting at the perfect time.
That's what they used to do, so, but have they talked with you and asked for an increase at all?
I have not gotten anything.
Okay.
And then Mr. Tribble is advocating.
But what they are supposed to do, this is a contractual agreement, and they supposed to get with our fire department and tell them when they want to increase.
That provides a great clarification on that. I've been part of that for the last 35 years.
Yeah.
When I was at the city of Clinton, the fire chief, myself, would work with Mr. Kane. Council. Past 1-2 years, I've worked great with the city of Clinton as far as negotiating that contract, like last year with the apparatus and the increase in CPI proposed by this council. Everybody's on the same sheet and use it forward. This year, I thought we had an understanding of that. That seems not to be the case. So we'll have to drop back and punt, have another discussion. And once we work together collectively, we'll bring that back.
That's what I thought we should do, but since you cannot, okay, how much you want to, can that add one more person in there?
That would not be effective.
Yeah.
I'm adding one other person instead of the two. I'm just hoping somebody to go along with me and he asked for 6 and let it be 3, give us half of what he asked.
Well, I would normally do that if I didn't think that it would actually be more dangerous to start something halfway, or you put them in more danger, and he actually said it would be dangerous for them to do that.
I know.
We'd increase our liability if we didn't do it fully and do it right, which is the only reason I didn't have it. Well, that's what we're doing now is pulling
Pulling, we
people.
still pulling, I know, but you see, I'm trying.
I do.
I'll pull out every stop I can pull out, I hope you know that. But okay.
Appropriate, absolutely. I'd like to, in the evening, with a vote in the evening on this subject, with a vote to increase the budget by 2 full-time employees and $50,000 for the city of Clinton to be negotiated in detail by the administration.
If you gonna put the amount in, then why do you need it in negotiation?
That's what I understand is supplement, budget with general fund not to exceed any, what, those premiums, changing from.
Motion was to accept the budget from the fire director and administrator with the following changes. Only 2 new employees. Increasing the Clinton fire contract $50,000. And then we will cover the deficit in the general fund, same as last year.
That's my motion, Mr. Chairman.
All right, we have a motion on the table. We have a second. I'll second. Is there any discussion?
Yeah, I agree with what Ms. Anderson had said. If we're naming the number, we're going and putting the number, why are we having a discussion? Why are they negotiating contract unless
the verbiage of the contract is who does what. We will decide the dollar figure today. And then but there's still parts of the contract as to which fire marshal answers to the build,
Because I believe the county administrator was a little unclear on that particular part.
Well, I mean, you're adopting a budget number prior to adopting the budget. By putting it in a contract outside of the budget. So you can give me negotiating power not to exceed a certain dollar amount in those budget negotiations. I can bring back the contract and it's agreed to by both parties. It can be adopted along with the budget. That would be my recommendation to keep it clean as possible, but I'll defer to the county attorney.
I don't think that is a motion, Mr. Chairman. I think that's, I mean, negotiating that with them and getting all of it right as well within the context of the motion that I made.
For the record, I would agree with the administrator logistic.
we do have a motion on the table. And we are in discussion.
You agree to an amendment to say up to 50,000?
He hadn't had about the second yet.
Yes, I second.
Who said it? Brown? Sorry, I did not hear it. I'm sorry.
We're approving numbers in a budget. Honestly, the biggest part, in my opinion, is deciding on the new head count. Determining where the deficit coverage is going to come from. There's multiple increases in your uniform bid plan, there's several. The only request from council to change any of those numbers was Mr. Crowell. The city fire. I found it fully within his right to make a motion for that increase. I also support that. I second it. We're deciding on numbers now. The contract, which encompasses many things, also needs to be finalized before the budget is approved. And I will directly ask the administrator to negotiate that contract. You can get it less than 371, that'd be even better. But I think that motion for this to approve the numbers in Fund 123 is quite appropriate. We'll also have to, before we enter into a contract with Clinton, we're gonna have to get that contract. That's a separate thing, in my opinion, from the budget. Now, we do it at the same time, no issue there. Contract separate from the budget, because they might decide they don't want to do it anymore. Every possibility. I mean, I'm fully conscious that we fund 35% of their entire power budget, so I doubt they'll make that decision. But they can still make it if they choose to. But in addition to us approving the numbers tonight, we're also, I will direct the chairman, the administrator to negotiate and finalize the contract prior to the third reading budget. They need that, and two, they need that number as much as we do to do their budget. We have a motion, we have a second, we've had discussion. Is there any further discussion? Hearing none, I'll take a vote to approve Fund 123 as presented with the following changes, cutting from 8 headcounts to 2, and to increasing Clinton City Fire contract by $50,000. And then to cover the deficit up to $1 million out of the general fund as we did previous years. All those in favor, please raise your right. Opposed? Motion passed 6-1. Councilwoman Anderson.
Mr. Chairman, I requested 5-minute recess. Going down to the.
We will take a recess for 5 minutes. We will, it's coming 7. We're making some.
We use fishbowl or outside. How many of us?
Yeah. Time.
One motion. I'm good with that. But like.
All right. 7:30. We didn't even cover.
They went out there again.
I don't think so. I think they're going back. So high revenues through it. How are you?
Somebody just-
Thank you. All right. I'm here past 7:30. I'll call this meeting back to order. Next item on the agenda. 134, Capitol Fire. Of this big clear last. So, capital millage, this past year was 2.16. Those, a lot of index was 2.34. 0.2%, or 0.2 rather. Increase there is a slight bit. You can see numbers there in the column. West and very bottom, the bottom top, we got our debt principal. We're servicing on. Is required. We don't have an option to not pay the bill. The only request coming from the fire director this year is some mechanics equipment. Those are for jacks that go into the trucks and allow them to be raised so that the mechanic can better service our equipment. There's specialty equipment, you can't just run to the Harbor Freight and buy a set, unfortunately. City at the bottom is throwing us into a $55,000 deficit based on this projected year's revenue, next year's projected revenue. However, you also notice that we have a surplus in that account of 106,000. Is a recommendation of the fire director and the county administrator. We will still, that is a self-sustaining fund, and it'll still be in the black at the end of next year, if that is all that's spent out of it. For me, this is easy. Move forward. Are there any questions, any comments?
What is the motion you would look for, Mr. Chairman, to approve the one that's the budget of last year's surplus?
Don't need to do this is something in one of the accounts. The my recommendation would be to make a motion to approve Fund 134 as presented.
To approve, Mr. Chairman.
Second.
Motion by Mr. Purple, second by Mr. Rankin. Is there any other discussion? Hearing none, I'll call for a vote. All those in favor, please raise your right hand. 7-0. You'll have this time with that one, the last one that'll let you go up. All right, thank you, Greg. I appreciate your time and presentation this evening. All right. You're up. All right, next up, EMS operating fund, Fund 128. You can see the value of mill for EMS as well as you'll see for county general later is 215,000 per mill. Operating millage is Fund 128. This past year was 18.08 mills with the proposed allowable index. With 8.74, and that's what's being presented here. this evening. This is a little different. Are there any questions on revenue? See a slight increase from last year. It looks like last year budgeted was 4.256, and this year we're at 4.609. So there's a little increase there. Projected revenues.
On the EMS fees, line 34511. The request was 2.2 million and the administrator request 2.4 million. Do you think we're gonna see that level of increase in reimbursement?
Yes, sir, I do. That's what we are hearing from, all other people get input from our billing agencies and everybody like that. Put the RFP out and based on their projected rate of returns, that's kind of.
Question on revenue. And we are also, I believe, we have offered a PL to simply do better. What is it? Do that? Under the expenses. Salaries, you will see that the department requested 3.365 and the county administrator is 2.9. The reason for that change, 3.6 is at fully staffed capacity. But as you remember, we're still contracting with Prisma to buy the truck. So that number is the actual number of folks fully staffed with that truck.
You said 3.6. Did you mean 3.365?
Versus 5. Yeah, the requested, and if we chose. So we did not have a prison truck and we had it fully staffed. It would be 3.36. However, I built that contract, and we'll get to that in a minute, but that contract's going quite well and everything's working out great and they're providing phenomenal service. I see no need to see. So the 2.911 is fully staffed with additional. It's a continued, we run out of the annual.
It's a continual contract. Either party has to give, I think it's 30 days. Is it 30 or 90? I don't.
It's like 90,
He said so, but that relationship is great.
Okay.
And we had a good symbiotic relationship. We work very well together. Just another point, Mr. Chairman, that 2.9 number includes that 6% COLA.
Yes.
As well.
Thank you. The expenses.
You would go through all of them, just go to the ones I changed.
I'll ask you ones that changed. All right. And professional services, that would be the line item where we use to contract from. So that's why that we're showing nothing. The last budget is now showing. $5,000 for technology and licenses. That's just software that's increasing. Nothing special there. Membership and dues went up 1,000. We encourage y'all to get educated and join some of the local municipal groups and county groups to do better. Training, you requested $4,000 increase. Any elaboration on that?
Mainly because we're starting all these extra teams that's all new to EMS, and we're trying to work with fire and then get part of the dive team, the swift water, high angle, low angle, and just need more funds to get some idea.
Good. Building maintenance. Last year budgeted 15,000, 20. Just glancing at the numbers over the past 2 years anyways, it looks like that's the accurate number. And
Our second bill's been kind of high.
and still not enough. Medical supplies, 30,000.
That's astronomical. So we have to go out and find somebody where we can get on, because this is back orders are killing us, different companies, great work with them day in, day out, trying to get us deals and do what we need.
All right, uniforms, 5,000. If you went up 50,000, and that just puts you in line where you've been the past few years. And we added more vehicles on the road during the shift over that.
Not where we were.
We added a new truck. I thought we added a truck.
That'd be like 12 now.
Billy's went down, that's really good.
All these fire departments.
And of course, not emergent. You'll see there the little emergency expenditure to 5.403907. Leaving you a deficit, $794,000. So you're about in the same spot you were last year as far as the deficit goes, it's 723.
Revenues are on projection, like they're what we expected to bring in.
I'll be honest, there don't see any or two in your increases.
I feel like it's washes. Everybody around that fire department.
Does anybody have any direct questions on any line?
Have any vacancies now?
Two.
Part-timers coming full-time and we have an interview tomorrow.
One.
Sorry, that answer that we have one position open, you have to interview. That's really quite excellent compared to 4 to 7. Got year upon year upon year, where it's 10 to 10 to 10.
Mr. Chairman, not to beleaguer the conversation, but it's very similar to the multiple hour conversation we just had. Necessary service, nothing really we can cut $794,000 from. Funded from the general. And cover the operations necessary to send service. I'll make a motion that we do that.
Mr. Carroll, second by Mr. Brooklyn. Approve on 128 as presented. Deficit being covered. Is there any discussion?
Put $7 left.
$400 up to.
Yeah, we get up to.
Same language.
200,000.
Yeah.
Acceptable.
I need others. Yes. I need to know.
I'll agree up to, David has seconded that change.
200,000 is the number. Yeah. Motion to approve 128 as presented. Covering the deficit from the general fund up to $800,000. Any other discussion? All right, I'll take a vote. All those in favor, please raise your right hand. 7-0. Reset. All right, 1-6, EMS cap. As 601 EMS capital. Millage on that one. Last year was 2.21. This year's proposed at 2.3. Mills. 601. As you'll see, revenues 114,207. Go ahead and walk us through your request there.
$20,000 for one more Lucas device to add to our truck that are coming in. 220,000 for an ambulance, that was 2 years ago, finally gonna get it. The last install payment of 125,000. Every year for that, so it drops off next year. And to recur in 28,820 a year for computer at least.
All right,
And so the 393.
that will give you a balance there of 120. In addition to your projected surplus, you'll be looking at a surplus, or not say surplus, a balance, excuse me. You'll have a balance in this self-expanding fund of almost $500,000 at the end of this year, which will prevent more new ambulances when we need them. So you might see this fund actually running well and not required to be offset by the general fund when it was established, it was designed to be self-sufficient. So
Move to approve, Mr. Chairman.
second, motion by Mr. Cribble, your second by Mr. Is there any further discussion? Hearing none, I'll call for the vote. All those in favor of approving fund 601 as presented, please raise your right hand. 7-0.
Paying less. For you.
That is all we have on the agenda for this evening. At the next budget meeting on Tuesday, next week, do we have any requests for regular meeting agenda items? I know they still have to play with. After the deadline,
Possibility of one economic development matter, that's probably more.
after evaluating after the deadline, agenda item request will determine whether or not we're gonna have a full-fledged council meeting or we're gonna have a budget workshop, but should be needed, we'll have a short regular meeting, followed by our second budget workshop. In that workshop, we'll be addressing, we'll start with our special funds, so, when I say special funds, it's standalone, so capital, fund 600, 210, which is the solid waste, fund 156, which is the, field special projects fund. And then after that, that's all we have left in the general budget. We will put that on the agenda in case we get to it. There are a few things, one after night, the county administrator will re-review the general budget, but it was balanced. And should be able to hopefully have a quick balanced budget. We have a few special appropriations that we'll probably address first. How we change the, or just so it may affect the budget in its entirety. Those first, but then we'll jump into the full budget. If there are any, if there's anything council has between now and next Tuesday, let me so quickly, just so you can program those as we need it.
Publication deadlines, we're gonna do the public hearing, general, for each of the ordinances, that's gonna go on Friday, or to meet the deadline. The specific numbers that I'll have to give Renee on, I think next Friday's are kind of our drop dead as far as publication, so.
So that's what
Just
we'll
keep those.
and then we'll have second reading at our last meeting of this month.
Right.
We will have our first public hearing at the first meeting in June. We'll have our second public hearing and third reading the last meeting in June. That's the current plan. I won't go down the line tonight. Any comments from council, however, before we close that? Here none, I'll call for motion to adjourn. Motion by Mr. Bryant. Second by Ms. Clark. All those in favor? All opposed?